I remember my first death like it was yesterday. Not the fall itself, but the moment right before. The wind was cold on my face, and I could see the river below me, and I thought about how strange it was that the sky was so blue. Then I felt hands on my back, and I was falling. The rocks at the bottom broke my spine before I even stopped screaming. I was 17 years old, and my classmates killed me because I tried to save them from themselves. That was the old timeline. This time, I am not making the same mistake. My name is Tessa Chen, and I have been given a second chance at life. I don't know how or why, but I woke up in my bed 3 months before the National College Entrance Assessment, with every memory of my past life still intact. Every scream, every betrayal, every single moment of pain. And I decided right then that I would never let them touch me again. The architect of my destruction was Mrs. Pendleton, our homeroom teacher for senior year. She was a woman in her late 40s with a round face and a high-pitched voice and an obsession with making everything warm and fuzzy. She called us her little ducklings. She wore sweaters that had animal faces on them. She brought scented candles to class and lit them during study hall. She kept a basket of fruit on her desk and cried when anyone refused an apple. At first, we all thought she was just eccentric. By senior year, we knew she was unhinged. But nobody said anything because she cried so easily. And when Mrs. Pendleton cried, the whole class turned into an angry mob. In my past life, she had printed our exam tickets on bright pink paper and covered them with cartoon stickers. I had tried to stop her. I had called the dean. The dean had screamed at her and forced her to reprint the tickets, but the chaos caused a 20-minute delay and half our class panicked and bombed the test. And then Mrs. Pendleton climbed onto the school roof and cried for the cameras and fell to her death. And my classmates blamed me. They dragged me to a cliff and pushed me off because I had hurt their beloved teacher. That was the old timeline. This time I kept my mouth shut. This time I let her destroy them. 3 weeks before the exam, Mrs. Pendleton walked into homeroom carrying a cardboard box. Her smile was so wide it looked like it hurt her face. "Good morning, my little ducklings," she sang. "Mommy teacher has a surprise for you." She pulled out a stack of admission tickets. But these were not normal tickets. They were printed on iridescent paper that shifted between pink and purple and green depending on the angle of the light. And she had laminated every single one with a special rose-tinted film that she bought from an Instagram ad. The lamination had tiny sparkles embedded in it. She held one up and the classroom lights caught the glitter. "I laminated them myself," she announced, beaming with pride. "I stayed up until 2 in the morning. I wanted my ducklings to feel safe and loved when they walk into that exam hall." The class erupted. People were passing the tickets around like they were winning lottery tickets. "Oh my God, it's so pretty! Mrs. Pendleton, you were the best teacher in the whole world."
I feel so calm just looking at this. I'm going to frame mine after the exam. I sat in the back row and felt my stomach turn into a knot of ice because I had seen this before. Not the exact same details, but the same energy, the same blind devotion, the same refusal to think critically about anything. In my past life, the tickets had been pink paper with stickers. Now they were iridescent and laminated. Mrs. Pendleton had upgraded her insanity, and my classmates had upgraded their worship. I reached into my backpack and felt for the backup tickets I had printed last week at the public library. 3 copies on standard white cardstock. No glitter, no lamination, just black ink on boring white paper. I had hidden them in a sealed envelope inside a pocket that I had sewn into the lining of my backpack. I was ready. But then Mrs. Pendleton noticed my silence. "Tessa!" she called out in that high-pitched sing-song voice that made my teeth ache. "Why aren't you saying anything? Don't you love the lamination?" The whole class turned to look at me. 39 pairs of eyes. Some curious, some annoyed, all waiting for me to perform the correct response. Jason, my childhood best friend, was staring at me with a look I knew too well. In my past life, Jason had been the one who grabbed my arm first. He had been the one who pushed me off the cliff. He had screamed my name while I fell. We had known each other since kindergarten. We had shared lunches and secrets and dreams about college. And he had killed me. I forced a smile onto my face.
It felt like plastic. "It's really beautiful, Mrs. Pendleton," I said. "The lamination is so creative." She nodded happily and turned back to the front. I knew she would cause a disaster. But I also knew that the disaster would not touch me, because I had my white tickets and I had my plan and I had nothing left to lose. But then Marcus spoke up. Marcus was our class treasurer. He was a quiet kid with glasses who never caused trouble. He raised his hand slowly, like he was afraid of being shot. Mrs. Pendleton, he said, I was reading the exam regulations last night, and I think Rule 7.2 says that admission tickets have to be on white paper with no coatings or alterations. The room went silent. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall.
Mrs. Pendleton's face crumbled like a sandcastle hit by a wave. Her lips started trembling, her eyes filled with tears. Are you saying, she whispered, are you saying that I don't know what's best for my ducklings? Then the tears came. Big ones, wet ones. She pulled a tissue from her sleeve and pressed it to her eyes. I spent 3 entire nights researching the most calming color spectrum. I bought a laminating machine with my own money. I just wanted you to feel loved. Why does everyone always question me? Marcus opened his mouth to apologize, but Jason stood up first. Leave her alone, Marcus. His voice was sharp and angry. Who cares about some dumb rule? Mrs. Pendleton worked harder for us than any other teacher in this school. The exam proctors aren't robots. They're human beings. They're not going to turn away the top class in the district because of a little lamination. Other students started nodding. Yeah, Jason is right. It's fine. Stop being such a rule follower, Marcus. Nobody asked for your opinion. Mrs. Pendleton sniffled and gave Jason a watery smile. Thank you, my duckling. You understand. I watched this happen and felt absolutely nothing. Because I had seen it before. The way they all turned into a cult whenever she cried. The way reason and logic evaporated like morning fog. The way they would rather believe a comforting lie than face an uncomfortable truth. The bell rang. It was time to go to the exam center. We had to take 2 school vans because our class had 40 students. Mrs. Pendleton wiped her face and put on her bright smile again. Okay, ducklings, she chirped. Line up nicely at the door. No pushing, no running. Be good for mommy teacher. Everyone grabbed their laminated iridescent tickets and scrambled out of the classroom. They were holding them up to the light, taking selfies for Instagram, comparing the colors. This is so aesthetic. The other classes have boring white papers. We are so lucky to be in this class. I walked slowly. I let them all pass me. I climbed into the second van and took a seat by the window. Jason sat next to me like he always did. He had been sitting next to me since we were 6 years old. For 11 years, I had thought of him as my best friend. Now, I thought of him as my murderer. Where's your ticket? He asked. In my pocket, I said. Let me see it. Why? Because I want to make sure you didn't do something stupid like print a backup on white paper. He said it like he was joking. But his eyes were not joking. In my past life, he had never asked that question. I felt a cold drop of sweat roll down my spine. I pulled out my laminated ticket. The iridescent paper. The rose-tinted film. The sparkles. Everything looked exactly like his. He stared at it for a few seconds. Then he nodded and looked away. I had hidden the white backup in a different pocket. A pocket he didn't know about. The van started moving. Mrs. Pendleton was in the front seat of our van, talking loudly about how she had tested the lamination on her own driver's license at the DMV, and it scanned perfectly, which was a complete lie. Lamination film adds a reflective coating that optical scanners cannot penetrate. I knew this because I had spent the last 3 weeks researching scanner technology and barcode standards. I knew that every single ticket in that van was going to be rejected. I knew that my classmates were about to lose their entire futures. And I knew that they would blame me for it. The van pulled into the exam center parking lot 20 minutes later. The building was massive. Gray concrete, barbed wire fences, security cameras everywhere. There were at least 20 other vans from other schools. Students were streaming toward the entrance, holding standard white tickets. Some of them looked nervous. Some looked confident. But none of them looked like they were about to fail before they even started. The head proctor was a tall woman with steel gray hair and a clipboard. She walked toward our van with purpose. Mrs. Pendleton jumped out first. Hello there, she chirped. We're the advanced placement class from Jefferson High. She said it like she was announcing royalty. The proctor nodded. Have all students present their admission tickets for inspection before exiting the vehicle. Mrs. Pendleton grabbed Jason's ticket out of his hand and held it up like a trophy. Look, she said, aren't they beautiful? I laminated them myself. I used a rose-tinted film. It reduces anxiety. The proctor took the ticket. She turned it over. She held it up to the light. She tried to scan the barcode with her handheld device. The device made a sad little beep and displayed the words "unable to read." She looked at Mrs. Pendleton like she'd just grown a second head. "These are invalid," she said. Her voice was flat and final. National Exam Regulation 7.2 is very clear. Admission tickets must be on white paper with no coatings, laminations, or embellishments. The security barcode is not readable through this film. Mrs. Pendleton blinked. She blinked again. "But I used a special film. It's medical grade. It's supposed to help with test anxiety." The proctor did not blink. "These tickets will not be accepted under any circumstances. You have 12 minutes to produce valid replacements or your entire class will be disqualified from today's examination." The van went completely silent. You could hear the wind outside. You could hear someone crying from the other van behind us. Then Jason laughed. He actually laughed out loud. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "You're joking, right?" He stepped off the van and stood face to face with the proctor. "Do you know who we are? We're the top class in the district. Our average GPA is 3.9. Our class president is going to Stanford. You can't just disqualify us over a piece of plastic." The proctor reached for her radio without breaking eye contact. "Security to gate 2. I have a vehicle with invalid admission documents and hostile students. Please send assistance immediately." Panic spread through the van like wildfire. Someone in the back started crying. A girl named Sarah was hyperventilating. A guy named Derek started yelling at Mrs. Pendleton. "You said it would be fine. You said you tested it at the DMV. You lied to us." Mrs. Pendleton burst into tears. Her whole body shook. "I didn't lie. I just wanted to help. I just wanted my ducklings to feel loved. Why is everyone being so mean to me? I don't deserve this." Jason slammed his fist against the side of the van. "Everyone shut up." He turned to the proctor. "Our principal is on his way with replacement tickets. He left the school 20 minutes ago. Just let us wait inside the building while he arrives." The proctor shook her head. "No valid ticket, no entry. Those are the rules. Move this vehicle out of the loading zone immediately or I will have it towed." I checked my phone. 8 minutes until the gates closed. The principal was at least 15 minutes away. He wasn't going to make it. Nobody was going to make it. Except me. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my laminated ticket. I held it up and looked at Jason. His eyes were wild with desperation. "You really believed her, didn't you?" I said. "What are you talking about?" he snapped. I stood up. I walked down the aisle of the van, stepping over backpacks and crying students. The proctor watched me approach. I reached into my inner jacket pocket. The hidden one. The one Jason didn't know about. I pulled out a crisp, white admission ticket. No lamination, no iridescent paper, no sparkles. Just black ink on standard white cardstock. The proctor took it. She scanned it with her handheld device. The device beeped a happy, cheerful beep. "Seat 84, room D," she said. "Proceed through the metal detectors and report to your proctor immediately." "Good luck." "Thank you," I said. And I stepped off the van. The screaming started before my foot hit the ground.
Jason's voice was a roar of pure fury. He lunged toward the door, but the proctor stepped in front of him. "Where did you get that? Why do you have a white ticket?" I turned around. I looked at all of them. The crying girls, the screaming boys, the teacher who had just destroyed 39 futures with her good intentions. "I printed backups," I said. My voice was calm, cold, deliberate. "Because unlike the rest of you, I don't trust a woman who thinks the rules don't apply to her." "You knew!" Marcus shouted from the back of the van. His face was red. "You knew the tickets were invalid and you didn't tell us!" "I did tell you," I said. "I told you when Marcus asked about the regulations on the bus. You all attacked him. You told him to shut up. You chose to defend her. You chose to be blind. Now, you get to live with your choice." Mrs. Pendleton pushed past Jason and ran toward me. Her face was blotchy and swollen. Her mascara was running down her cheeks. "Tessa," she wailed, "give your ticket to Jason. He's our valedictorian. He deserves to take the exam more than you. Give it to him right now." I stared at this woman. This grown woman in her 40s. This
trained educator. She was asking me to sacrifice my future for her favorite student after she had just destroyed everyone else. In my past life, I had died for these people. I had been pushed off a cliff because I tried to save them from this exact moment. No, I said. I turned my back on all of them. I walked toward the entrance of the testing center. Behind me, I heard the security guards moving to block the van doors. I heard Jason screaming my name over and over. I heard Mrs. Pendleton wailing about her ducklings. I heard the sound of fists pounding against windows. I did not look back. I walked through the metal detectors.
I found seat 84 in room D. I laid out my pencils and my eraser and my calculator. At exactly 8:45 in the morning, the heavy doors of the testing center locked. The exam began. For the next 2 days, I focused on nothing but the questions. Math section 1, reading comprehension, writing and language, math section 2, the essay. I poured every hour of studying, every sleepless night, every drop of knowledge into those answer sheets. When I finished the final section on the second day, I sat back and exhaled. My hand was cramping, my neck was stiff, but I knew I had done well. Better than well, I had aced it. When I walked out of the building into the afternoon sun, I turned on my phone. It exploded with notifications. 300 text messages, 2,000 Instagram notifications, 47 missed calls. The class group chat had over 4,000 unread messages. The local news had already picked up the story. Scandal at exam center. Entire advanced placement class disqualified from national assessment due to invalid admission tickets. The details were brutal and beautiful. The principal had arrived 8 minutes after the gates locked. He had the replacement tickets in his hand. He had begged, he had pleaded, he had offered to pay fines. But the national board was unyielding. Rules were rules. The entire class of Jefferson High AP section, except for one student, was barred from taking the exam. 3 years of studying, thousands of dollars in tutoring, college applications, scholarship opportunities, all of it gone because a teacher wanted her students to feel loved. I scrolled through the group chat. It was a war zone. The same students who had clapped for the laminated tickets were now sending death threats to Mrs. Pendleton. I want to kill her. My dad said he's disowning me. I have nothing. My life is over. She ruined us. She's a psycho. Why did we ever listen to her? Jason posted a long message. Everyone stay calm. Don't post anything online. Don't talk to reporters. We need to handle this as a group. But I knew Jason. I knew he wasn't trying to keep the peace. He was looking for someone to blame. And I knew that someone was me. A week later, the exam results came out. I logged into the portal at exactly 8 in the morning. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. The numbers appeared on the screen. 1,580 out of 1,600. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I refreshed the page. Same numbers. I was the highest scoring student in the state. My acceptance letter from Stanford arrived via email 10 minutes later. Full scholarship, room and board included. I was going to California. I was getting out. As I sat in my kitchen reading the letter, my phone rang. It was the school principal. "Tessa," he said. His voice was exhausted. He sounded like he hadn't slept in days. "Can you come to the school? The police are here. It's about Mrs. Pendleton." I knew what had happened. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it echoes. I took a taxi to the school. The campus was quiet. No students in the hallways, no teachers in the parking lot. Just yellow police tape and flashing lights and a crowd of reporters behind a barricade. I walked past a cluster of weeping teachers and numb-looking staff members. I looked up. Mrs. Pendleton was standing on the edge of the water tower behind the gymnasium. It was a rusty old structure, 50 feet tall, covered in graffiti. She was wearing her favorite sweater, the one with the cartoon duck on the front. Her hair was a tangled mess. She was holding her phone and screaming into it. I just wanted them to be happy. Her voice echoed across the courtyard. "The system is cruel and unfair. My ducklings deserved better. Why is everyone blaming me? I did everything for them." But the person standing on the water tower with her was not me this time. It was Jason. He had climbed up there somehow. I don't know how, I don't know when, but he was there. He was pointing at her and screaming, "You crazy, selfish woman! You ruined our lives! You took everything from us! My parents kicked me out. I lost my Stanford spot. Jump! If you really love us, jump! Pay for what you did!" The crowd gasped.
Police officers tried to pull Jason back, but he fought them. 2 officers grabbed his arms. He twisted and kicked. Mrs. Pendleton took a step backward. Her heel caught on a loose bolt on the edge of the water tower. For one terrible second, she hovered in the air. Her arms windmilled. Her eyes met Jason. Then she fell. The sound she made when she hit the ground was soft and wet and final. I will never forget that sound. I stood at the back of the crowd and watched them cover her body with a white sheet. I watched Jason being handcuffed and led away. He was still screaming, still fighting, still blaming. I felt nothing. Not relief, not pity, not sadness. Just a cold, clean sense of closure. I turned and walked away before anyone could ask me questions. But I knew it wasn't over. Because Jason had been arrested but not convicted. Because 38 of my former classmates still needed someone to hate. Because I had survived and they had not. And people like that always need a scapegoat. 2 nights later, I got a text from an unknown number. Tessa, it's Marcus.
Please meet me at the old railway bridge behind the industrial park. I found Mrs. Pendleton's personal journal. She wrote down everything. It proves she sabotaged us on purpose. You're the only one who made it to college. You have to help us get a retake. Please, I'm scared. I stared at the glowing screen in the dark of my bedroom. The old railway bridge? It was a rusted iron structure spanning a 50-foot drop to a dry creek bed. Rocks at the bottom, sharp ones, broken glass, rusted metal. It was the exact same spot where, in my past life, 39 students had dragged me, beaten me, and thrown me over the edge. I smiled. It was not a happy smile. I replied, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Wait for me. I didn't dress for a hike. I dressed for a trap. Black jeans, black hoodie, tight ponytail, and a small voice-activated recorder clipped to the inside of my jacket. Before I left my room, I made a phone call. I had spent the last 2 days talking to Detective Rodriguez. She was the officer in charge of Mrs. Pendleton's death investigation. I had told her that Jason had been making threats, that he blamed me for surviving, that he had been posting cryptic messages online. I had given her screenshots. I had given her everything. Detective Rodriguez, I said, this is Tessa Chen. Jason just sent someone to lure me to the old railway bridge. I think he's planning to hurt me. Stay where you are, she said. Her voice was urgent. Do not go there alone. I'm sending units now. I'm already on my way, I said. I'll be careful. I'll keep my phone on. Don't engage with them. Just observe and wait for us. I hung up. By the time I parked my car near the industrial park, I could hear the distant wail of sirens on the highway. Perfect timing. I walked down the dark path toward the bridge. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds. The only light came from my phone screen and the distant glow of the city. The path was littered with broken bottles and empty cans. The industrial park had been abandoned for years. Nobody came here except teenagers looking for trouble. Tonight there was plenty of trouble to go around. When I reached the clearing near the bridge, I stopped. Hello? I called out. My voice echoed off the rusted metal. The silence was heavy and wrong. Then they emerged from the shadows. Not just Marcus, almost the entire class. 38 figures. Some holding baseball bats, some holding heavy branches, some holding rocks. Jason was at the front. He looked like a different person. His eyes were hollow and red. His clothes were ripped and dirty. His face was thin and pale. The golden boy I had known since kindergarten was gone. In his place was something desperate and dangerous. You actually came, he said. His voice was low and rough. I didn't think you had the guts. I kept my distance. I made sure my back was toward the path, not the bridge. I made sure my phone was recording in my pocket. I made sure my voice was steady. I'm here, I said. What do you want? What do I want? He laughed. It was an ugly sound. I want my future back. I want my Stanford acceptance. I want everything you stole from me. I didn't steal anything from you, I said. You stole from yourself. You chose to defend her. You chose to tear up your own ticket. You chose to believe a lie because it was easier than the truth. Shut up, a girl from behind him screamed. This is your fault. If you had just told us the tickets were invalid, we could have done something. You kept your mouth shut so you could eliminate the competition. I warned you, I said. My voice was calm. I warned you on the van. I told you when Marcus asked about the regulations. Jason told me to shut up. You all agreed with him. You tore your own tickets apart with your own hands. How many times do I have to say it? Your choices, your consequences, not mine. You had a white ticket, Jason roared. He stepped toward me. His hands were shaking. You let Mrs. Pendleton die. You let us burn. You stood there and watched and did nothing. I did nothing, I said. I laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. I spent 3 years doing everything for this class. Every event, every fundraiser, every time Mrs. Pendleton forgot to do her job, I was the one who fixed it. And none of you ever noticed. None of you ever thanked me. You just called me bossy and controlling and told me to relax. So yes, this time I did nothing. And it was the best thing I ever did. Jason screamed. It was an animal sound, full of rage and pain and desperation. Grab her! Throw her off the bridge! Let's see how smart she is when she's bleeding out on the rocks. The mob surged forward. In my past life, I had frozen. I had begged. I had cried. I had let them take me. Not this time. I pulled out my phone and hit the emergency strobe button. A blinding white light flashed into the darkness. The crowd stumbled back, hands covered eyes. People tripped over roots and rocks. At the same moment, the woods behind me exploded with red and blue lights. Police! Drop your weapons!
Get on the ground, now! Do not move! 6 police cruisers had surrounded the clearing. Officers swarmed out with tasers drawn and guns raised. The mob fell apart like a house of cards in a hurricane. People dropped their weapons and ran. Some were tackled into the dirt. Some fell to their knees, crying. Some just stood there frozen with their hands in the air. Jason tried to flee. He turned and ran toward the bridge. But Detective Rodriguez was faster. She grabbed him by the collar of his jacket and slammed him onto the hood of a police car. Tessa Chen! He twisted his head to look at me. His face was wet with tears and snot and sweat. Tell him we were just messing around. We weren't going to hurt you. It was a joke. Please, Tessa. We've known each other since we were 5 years old. Don't do this to me. I walked over to the police car. I looked down at the boy who had pushed me off a cliff in another life. He looked so small now, so broken. So pathetic. I leaned in close so only he could hear me over the sirens. In another life, you killed me, Jason. His eyes widened. I don't know what you're talking about, he whispered. I know, I said, and I have the recording to prove what you tried to do tonight. I stood up straight and turned to Detective Rodriguez. I have a recording of everything they said. Death threats, conspiracy to commit assault, attempted kidnapping, it's all on this phone. Jason screamed as the officer pulled him up. Tessa, I'll find you! I swear I'll find you! I'll make you pay for this! But his voice faded as they put him in the back of the cruiser. The door slammed. The car pulled away. I stood in the clearing and watched the police round up my former classmates. Some of them were as young as 16. Some of them had been my friends for years. Some of them had sat next to me in class and borrowed my notes and laughed at my jokes. Now they were handcuffed and crying and begging for second chances. They would not get them. Not from me, not from anyone. Detective Rodriguez walked over to me. Her face was grim but kind. Are you okay? She asked. I thought about it for a second. I'm fine, I said. I will need you to come to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. Of course. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? I have my apartment. She nodded. Good. Go home. Get some rest. This is going to be a long process. I walked back to my car. The night air was cold, but I didn't feel it. My hands were steady. My heart was calm. I got in and sat for a moment. I thought about the old timeline. The cliff. The rocks. The way my body had broken apart. That version of me was dead. She died so this version could live. I started the car and drove home. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window. I made coffee, I ate breakfast, I checked my email. There was a message from Stanford Housing. Welcome class of 2026. Please complete your dorm preference form by August 1st. I smiled. A real smile. One that reached my eyes. I spent the rest of the day shopping for college supplies. Dorm bedding, desk lamp, shower caddy, textbooks, a new laptop. I looked at laptop cases for a long time. There were so many colors. Neon green, electric blue, bright red, matte black, silver, gold. I chose a simple gray one. No glitter, no sparkles, no iridescent anything. Just gray. Boring. Functional. Perfect. I thought about the future. Stanford. California. A new city. New people. A life where nobody knew my name or my past or the things I had survived. I thought about Jason in his jail cell. About Mrs. Pendleton in her grave.
About my former classmates who would spend the next year explaining to college admissions why they had no exam scores. I did not feel bad for any of them. I felt free. I packed my suitcase. I booked my flight. I said goodbye to my parents, who still didn't know the full story. And 3 weeks later, I got on a plane to California. The plane took off into a clear blue sky. I looked out the window as my hometown shrank beneath me, smaller and smaller until it was just a spot on the map. I leaned back in my seat, closed my eyes, and smiled. I was alive. I was free. And I was never going back.